It all began with a signal. At first, nobody thought it was anything special. Scientists at a remote listening station high in the mountains noticed a repeating pulse coming from deep space. It wasn't the kind of signal that usually reached Earth. No familiar patterns, no echoes of distant stars. It was something different, something deliberate. The initial team assumed it was a glitch, maybe interference from a satellite or a malfunction in their equipment. But as they examined it closely, the signal kept repeating and the pattern was far too structured to be random. It had a rhythm, almost like someone was sending a message in a code that hadn't been seen before. Dr. Loren Hale, a retired astrophysicist, was among the first to pay serious attention. Though long out of active research, he had spent decades studying deep space signals. When his colleagues brought the new pulse to him, he felt a shiver run down his spine. Something about it seemed ancient. Not just old in years, but old in a way that suggested intelligence beyond human comprehension. He pored over the recordings, listening again and again, slowly decoding the faintest variations in the pulses. After weeks of careful work, a pattern began to emerge. A language, or something very much like it. The message was short but terrifying. Translating it required knowledge of interstellar codes that only a handful of species in the galaxy had ever mastered. The content, when finally understood, was simple but chilling. Do not seek contact. Do not approach Earth. It walks among you. That was it. No greetings, no questions, just a warning. Earth's governments reacted quietly at first. Officially, nothing was happening. They claimed scientists were investigating the signal, that it was likely a natural phenomenon. But behind closed doors, the mood was tense. The warning wasn't signed by just any civilization. It came from the Aurelians, a species so ancient that they had been studying the galaxy since long before Earth even had life. They were known as the oldest living species in recorded history, beings whose knowledge stretched millions of years into the past. For them to issue a warning was unprecedented. For them to fear something on Earth was almost unimaginable. Scientists tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the translation was off. Maybe the signal had been misinterpreted. But Dr. Hale couldn't ignore it. He started looking at old data, old deep space missions, and unusual readings that had never made sense before. One thing stood out. Probes and exploratory vessels that ventured far from the solar system often encountered strange anomalies near the edges of our star system. Equipment would fail for no reason. Instruments would record unexplainable forces, and sometimes the craft itself would vanish entirely. Nobody had connected the dots until now. Dr. Hale's research led him to a startling conclusion. Earth had been marked long ago, not by humans, but by something else entirely. In the Aurelians' ancient records, only a handful of planets had ever been designated as forbidden. Earth was one of them. The symbol they used was simple, a black emblem that conveyed a single meaning across all known species. Forbidden origin. That didn't just mean dangerous. It meant untouchable, something to avoid, something not meant to be approached by even the wisest beings in the galaxy. No explanation was given. Only fragments of old notes survived, cryptic lines like "the walkers of shadow were born there," and "approach only at your own peril." That was the closest anyone had ever come to understanding why the Aurelians avoided Earth. And the more Dr. Hale dug into the records, the more he realized that the warning wasn't new. It had been there for millions of years, overlooked by humans because humans had no reason to look. The signal, in a way, had reawakened an old fear. Across the galaxy, spacefarers and scholars had long ignored Earth, treating it as an empty, unimportant rock. But now, after the warning, it became something else, a place of mystery and dread. Something about the planet seemed alive in a way that defied understanding, and it had caught the attention of the galaxy's oldest species for reasons nobody could explain. In the following weeks, Dr. Hale worked with a small team of linguists and scientists. They tried to decode more from the signal, hoping to find clarification, but every attempt ended in frustration. The pulses were brief, almost as if the Aurelians were deliberately hiding the details. What they could discern was consistent. The warning was not temporary. It was a statement of fact meant to be taken seriously, meant to prevent contact entirely. Meanwhile, the world around them seemed oblivious. Life on Earth continued as usual. People went about their days unaware that the galaxy's oldest and wisest beings had just marked their planet as dangerous. Dr. Hale felt a strange mix of frustration and awe. Humans, in their limited perception, couldn't grasp the scale of what was happening. Yet the warning was undeniable. Something on Earth had, in some way, caught the attention of a species that had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. The more he studied, the more Dr. Hale became obsessed. He began reviewing old myths, ancient texts, and unexplained phenomena throughout human history. Stories of shadows moving against the wind, people vanishing without trace, inexplicable events that defied science. Suddenly, these weren't just stories. They were faint echoes of the same warning the Aurelians had sent. Could it be that humans had unknowingly lived alongside whatever it was that frightened the galaxy's oldest species? The government, sensing the potential panic, tried to keep the discovery quiet. News of the signal was buried, classified documents were created, and only a select few scientists were allowed access to the data. But information has a way of leaking. Rumors began to circulate among the scientific community. A few brave researchers spoke quietly of the warning, careful to avoid official reprimand. They described it not as a threat, but as a mystery, a puzzle that could reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Dr. Hale knew that humanity was on the edge of something monumental. The signal was not an invitation. It was a boundary, a line that humanity was not yet ready to cross. Yet it had also sparked a curiosity that would not easily be quelled. Who were the Aurelians? Why did they fear Earth? And most importantly, what was it that walked among humans unseen and unnoticed for so many centuries? As weeks turned into months, more signals arrived. Each one followed the same pattern, short, precise, and deliberately ominous. Scientists across the globe scrambled to analyze them, but the message never changed. Do not seek contact. Do not approach Earth. It walks among you. There was no additional explanation, no context, nothing that could ease the unease building in the scientific community. Dr. Hale often spent nights alone, staring at the recordings, listening to the faint pulses that carried the weight of millions of years of intelligence. The rhythm was hypnotic, almost like a heartbeat, and in it he felt a presence, not human, not even alien in the way humans imagined aliens. Something ancient, something observant, something patient. It had waited. For centuries, quietly watching, and now it had chosen to speak. The discovery left him with more questions than answers. Was the warning meant for humans, or was it a note to other civilizations? Had Earth always been dangerous, or had something awakened recently? And above all, what was walking among them that even the oldest species in the galaxy dared not confront? One thing was certain. Humanity had crossed a threshold without realizing it. The galaxy's oldest species had made their stance clear. Earth was marked. Whatever lurked in the shadows, whatever had caused the Aurelians' fear, remained hidden, for now. But the signal was only the beginning. It was a warning, yes, but also an invitation to look closer, to question more, to face a truth that humanity might not yet be ready to understand. Dr. Hale knew that time was short. The world outside remained oblivious, continuing its daily routines unaware of the silent watchers far beyond the stars. But for those who had seen the signal, for those who had heard the pulses echoing across the cosmos, there was no turning back. Something unimaginable was here, something that had walked the Earth for centuries, hidden in plain sight. And the galaxy's oldest species had made it very clear: humanity should beware. The night sky seemed colder after that. Even the stars felt distant, as if they were watching, waiting, and holding back knowledge too vast for human minds to comprehend. And beneath the calm exterior of daily life, a silent question began to take root in the hearts of a few. What walks among us? And how long has it been here? The answer, for now, remained beyond reach. But Dr. Hale and a handful of others knew one truth with chilling certainty. Earth was no longer just another blue planet in the Milky Way. It had become a place of warning, a place of shadows, a place that the galaxy's oldest and wisest beings chose to avoid. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying revelation of all. After the first signal arrived, Dr. Lauren Hale couldn't stop thinking about it. The warning from the Aurelians, the oldest species in the galaxy, was more than a simple message. It was a mystery, a puzzle stretching back millions of years. He began to look not just at the signal, but at Earth itself. Could it be that something about this planet had always been unusual? Something that had drawn the attention of beings far older and wiser than humanity? He started with old records, historical accounts, and even legends that had been passed down through generations. At first, the connection seemed impossible. Myths about shadows moving in forests, strange disappearances of explorers, and inexplicable lights in the sky were dismissed as superstition. But as Dr. Hale lined them up with known astronomical events, a pattern emerged. These events weren't random. They were clustered around certain locations, often near mountains, deserts, or frozen lands, places where human activity had been limited, but where strange phenomena had been consistently reported. Dr. Hale shared his observations with a small team of researchers. They were a mix of physicists, historians, and cryptologists, people used to chasing patterns in chaos. Together they began mapping incidents, from unexplained natural disasters to untraceable disappearances. Each one seemed minor on its own, but when combined, a picture started to form. It was as if the planet itself had layers of hidden history, a history that humanity had barely begun to notice. One discovery was particularly striking. Dr. Hale noticed that many of the anomalies coincided with old satellite data, much of which had been ignored or classified. Satellites had recorded unusual energy readings in certain regions, some lasting mere seconds, others stretching over hours or even days. The readings didn't match any known natural phenomena. They seemed too deliberate, too structured to be random. Something was generating energy in ways humans had no understanding of, in patterns that suggested intelligence. The team began to dig deeper into historical data from deep space missions. Probes sent beyond the solar system had often encountered strange forces. Some had disappeared entirely, while others had sent back distorted signals before going silent. At first, these incidents were dismissed as accidents or technical malfunctions. But when Dr. Hale compared these reports with Aurelians' archives, records from a species older than humanity itself, the connection became impossible to ignore. According to the Aurelians, Earth was one of only a handful of planets in the galaxy marked as forbidden. Their symbol, simple yet ominous, was a universal sign of danger. In their catalog, they didn't just note planets that were dangerous to visit. They marked planets that were dangerous in a deeper, almost philosophical sense. Earth had been marked not because of humans, but because of something that existed here long before humanity even appeared. Something ancient, hidden, and perhaps even alive in ways humanity couldn't perceive. Dr. Hale couldn't shake the sense of awe and fear that came with this realization. Humans had always believed they were alone, or at least the dominant species, on their own planet. Now the evidence suggested otherwise. Earth had been watched, studied, and avoided by beings far older and far more powerful, and the reason for that avoidance remained a mystery. To understand more, the team began reviewing forgotten missions. In 2087, a research vessel from a distant civilization called the Carathans had attempted to approach Earth. They ignored the warnings, thinking humanity might be at the center of some galactic discovery. The vessel entered the solar system and then vanished. Pieces of it were later found near Jupiter's orbit, twisted, melted, and mangled in ways that defied human physics. Instruments had recorded sudden gravitational fluctuations, electromagnetic pulses, and energy spikes unlike anything ever documented. One surviving transmission from the crew was chilling. A voice trembled as it said, "It saw us," before abruptly cutting off. The incident made the interstellar community wary of Earth. Even civilizations that had previously ignored the planet began to take notice, marking it as an exclusion zone. Yet humanity remained oblivious. Life continued in cities, towns, and villages, unaware that something far older and far more powerful than themselves had been warning others to stay away. Dr. Hale's team decided to look even closer. They examined ancient human records for anomalies that might hint at something hidden in plain sight. Old cave paintings, strange ruins, and mysterious artifacts were scrutinized in ways never done before. Some artifacts didn't seem to belong to any known human civilization. Their materials were unusual, their designs complex, and some emitted faint energy readings that defied measurement. Could these be remnants of something not entirely human? The most unusual findings came from isolated regions like deserts and polar lands. In Antarctica, for example, satellite images revealed shapes under the ice that didn't match any natural formations. Some structures appeared geometric, too precise to have been created by natural forces. Dr. Hale suspected that these might be ancient constructs, perhaps remnants of a civilization that predated humans or even something entirely different, something that had been here long before humans arrived. The energy readings from these sites were subtle but persistent. Instruments recorded faint pulses that seemed synchronized across distances. The pattern matched the Aurelian's warning signal in strange ways, suggesting a connection. Whatever existed beneath the surface of Earth might be the same presence that the Aurelians feared, the entity or entities that had caused civilizations to vanish, disappear, or be erased from memory. As weeks turned into months, Dr. Hale's research became more intense. He and his team worked in secrecy, aware that revealing too much to the public could cause panic. Yet the more they discovered, the more questions arose. Could humanity coexist with whatever had lived here for millions of years? Were humans themselves influenced in ways they didn't understand? The thought was frightening. Humanity had believed it was the dominant species, yet the evidence suggested otherwise. Humans might be guests or perhaps even pawns in a much larger story that stretched across the stars. The team began noticing small anomalies in everyday life. Equipment would malfunction without explanation. Electronic devices would behave strangely near certain sites. Even in cities far from the polar regions, instruments sometimes picked up faint, inexplicable signals. The Earth itself seemed alive, or at least aware of being studied. And the presence that had haunted the planet for millennia was quiet but persistent, hidden yet unmistakable. In interviews with other scientists, Dr. Hale found others who had noticed oddities, but never connected them. Pilots reported strange lights over oceans and mountains. Deep-sea explorers found areas where instruments failed completely, even without mechanical issues. Even astronauts reported unusual patterns in the stars when observed from orbit, as if Earth emitted a subtle signature detectable only at certain distances. The anomalies weren't random. They were consistent, almost deliberate. Something, or someone, was paying attention. Dr. Hale began to think differently about humanity's history. Wars, plagues, and unexplained collapses of ancient civilizations might not have been purely human failures. Perhaps something had influenced events subtly, guiding humanity's development without ever showing itself openly. The Aurelians' warning suddenly made sense. Earth was not dangerous because of humans. It was dangerous because of something humans hadn't fully understood, something that had walked the planet long before anyone could record it. Even with all this research, answers remained elusive. The Aurelians had given a warning, but they had left no solution, no guidance, only a statement of caution. And the more Dr. Hale studied, the more he realized that humans were still blind to the full scale of what existed around them. This was not just a scientific mystery. It was a fundamental question about existence, about life, and about the unseen forces that shape the world. Late one night, as Dr. Hale stared at the stars from his observatory, he thought about the first signal again. The pulse echoed in his mind, a rhythmic heartbeat from across the cosmos. Do not seek contact. Do not approach Earth. It walks among you. The words haunted him, but they also motivated him. Humanity was on the edge of discovering a truth far older than themselves, and it was a truth that could change everything they thought they knew about life, history, and the universe. Dr. Hale knew that the path forward would be difficult, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but he also knew one thing clearly. The Aurelian's warning was real. Earth was not just another planet. It was marked, watched, and protected in ways humans had never imagined. And whatever had walked among humans for centuries, perhaps even millennia, was still here, silent, hidden, waiting. For the first time, humanity was forced to look at its own world differently. The signal had opened a door, and behind it lay questions that were larger than the human mind, larger than Earth itself. Dr. Hale felt the weight of that truth deeply. The galaxy's oldest species had not acted lightly. They had chosen to warn, to mark, and to avoid. And in doing so, they had left humanity with a choice: to ignore the warning, or to begin searching for answers that might have been waiting for them all along. The nights grew longer, the signals continued, and the sense of something watching became impossible to ignore. Earth had always been ordinary to humans, a place of... Years after the first warning signal reached Earth, the story of a lost expedition became a turning point in understanding the planet's true mystery. In 2087, a small exploratory vessel from a distant civilization called the Carathons decided to investigate the solar system despite warnings. Unlike humans, the Carathons were familiar with interstellar dangers. Their civilization had explored countless star systems, charted unknown planets, and survived encounters with beings far older and far stranger than themselves. But even they underestimated what lay hidden in Earth's system. The ship, sleek and advanced, approached Earth cautiously at first. Its sensors detected nothing unusual in the nearby space, just the usual gravitational fields, asteroid belts, and distant sunlight. The crew was confident. They had studied similar planetary systems without incident, yet as the ship drew closer to the outer edges of the solar system, something began to change. Instruments flickered, readings became erratic, and small, inexplicable energy surges appeared on the sensors. The crew initially assumed it was technical interference from the ship itself. They recalibrated systems and continued their approach. Unaware that these fluctuations were not random, days passed. The ship entered the orbit of Jupiter, one of the last steps before approaching Earth. Suddenly, the vessel's instruments recorded a gravitational anomaly far beyond anything the Carathons had encountered before. Their advanced navigation systems struggled to compensate. Panels flashed warnings. Crew members felt subtle changes in their own balance, as if some invisible force was pulling at them. Even the ship's most sophisticated shielding could not fully compensate for the anomalies. Then came the first transmission back to their home world. The voice of the mission commander trembled, almost human in its emotion, despite the Carathons' calm and disciplined culture. "We see it. Something is there. It knows we are here. We cannot proceed." The words ended abruptly. The rest of the message was filled with static, distorted by unknown interference. Back home, the transmission was analyzed repeatedly, but nothing in the Carathons' history or technology could explain what had been reported. Within hours, the ship vanished entirely. Long-range scans detected fragments later near Jupiter's orbit, but they were mangled beyond recognition. Twisted, metal, fused wiring, and shattered equipment floated in the void. Instruments that survived the crash indicated extreme forces that should have been impossible to exist naturally. Energy readings were off the charts, as though the fragments had been subjected to conditions beyond physics as humans understood them. No life signs were detected, no survivors. Only one more fragment of communication remained, again brief, again terrifying. "It saw us." The disappearance of the Carathons' ship sent shockwaves across interstellar networks. Earth became marked in alien records as a forbidden world. Warnings spread quietly, as other civilizations began to record their own observations of the planet. Some had encountered unexplained phenomena nearby. Others had detected strange energy signatures emanating from the planet, subtle yet persistent. The Aurelians' warning signal suddenly made sense. Whatever existed on Earth was not only intelligent but capable of forces far beyond even advanced civilizations' understanding. Back on Earth, the news of the lost expedition reached very few people. Governments and scientific agencies kept it classified. Ordinary people carried on with life, oblivious to the events unfolding across the solar system. But in private labs and observatories, researchers like Dr. Hale began to piece together the fragments of information. Each discovery seemed to confirm what the Aurelians had warned. Earth was not simply another planet. It was a place where something ancient and powerful resided, something that could not be approached safely, even by species older and wiser than humans. Dr. Hale's team began examining historical records for incidents that might hint at previous interactions. Ancient myths, legends, and unexplained disappearances were reevaluated with a new perspective. Stories of explorers vanishing in deserts, mountains, and polar regions were no longer mere folklore. They were potential signs of earlier encounters with the same force that had affected the Carethans. Even natural disasters that seemed unusually violent or localized were studied for patterns. Could these have been subtle interventions by an unseen presence? The team discovered that Earth itself seemed to have layers of protection or concealment built into it. Energy patterns from satellites revealed irregularities that had persisted for decades but had been ignored as technical glitches. Some areas of the planet appeared to emit faint electromagnetic pulses that interfered with instruments, as if the planet itself, or something beneath its surface, was aware of observation. Dr. Hale's team began to consider the possibility that whatever had caused the Carethans' ship to vanish had been interacting with Earth for centuries, perhaps even millennia. Satellite imagery of remote regions revealed more mysteries. In the polar ice of Antarctica, large geometric shapes lay beneath the ice, structures that could not have been created by natural processes. Their symmetry and precision suggested intelligence. Some areas emitted faint pulses, subtle enough to escape detection, unless instruments were specifically tuned to measure them. Dr. Hale's team speculated that these might be ancient constructs, remnants of an earlier presence on Earth, or even entities that had remained dormant for thousands of years. The implications were staggering. Humanity, Dr. Hale realized, had always assumed it was the dominant life form on its planet. Yet evidence suggested that something far older, far more intelligent had been here long before humans existed. The thought was both humbling and terrifying. Humans were not alone and perhaps never had been. They had lived in the shadow of a force they could not perceive, a presence that even the oldest species in the galaxy feared. While analyzing the Carethans' records, Dr. Hale's team noticed that the anomalies near Earth shared a consistent signature. Energy fluctuations, gravitational distortions, and unusual electromagnetic fields were all part of a pattern. This suggested that the planet itself, or something on it, was interacting with approaching vessels in a deliberate way. It was as if Earth was defended by an intelligence that could anticipate intrusion, detect intent, and act with precision to neutralize threats. Dr. Hale considered the psychological impact on humanity if these findings were revealed. Ordinary people might not survive the revelation that their planet was considered too dangerous even for advanced alien species. The team decided to continue studying the evidence quietly, building understanding one step at a time. The goal was not to confront or provoke, but to comprehend and observe, much like the Carethans had intended before their expedition ended in disaster. Over time, the team noticed patterns in human history that suggested the hidden presence on Earth might have influenced civilization itself. Wars, natural disasters, unexplained technological leaps, and sudden collapses of societies could all be part of a larger picture. Perhaps the same intelligence that had caused the Carethans' disappearance had subtly shaped the path of human development. It was not a malicious force necessarily, but one that acted according to rules humans could not yet comprehend. Dr. Hale often reflected on the first warning signal. Its pulse, rhythmic and precise, had been a message from across the stars. Do not seek contact. Do not approach Earth. It walks among you. The lost Carethans expedition proved that the warning was not theoretical. It was real. Earth was a world of hidden dangers, a place where ancient forces still operated, unseen but unmistakable. The disappearance of the Carethan's ship also raised ethical questions for humanity. Could humans, if they reached the stars, face the same dangers? Were they ready to confront forces older than the galaxy itself? Dr. Hale worried that humanity's curiosity, while natural, might be dangerous. The urge to explore, to reach out, was strong, but some doors, once opened, could never be closed. As Dr. Hale and his team continued their research, the sense of urgency grew. Every satellite pass, every historical record, every anomalous reading pointed to the same conclusion. Earth was not an ordinary planet. Something extraordinary, something ancient, walked among humans. Its presence had shaped the planet's history and would continue to influence it in ways humans had yet to understand. Despite the danger, Dr. Hale felt a strange sense of wonder. Humanity had always been small and limited, yet now it stood on the edge of understanding something far greater. The Carethan's loss was a reminder of risk, but it was also a call to observe, to learn, and to respect the unknown. Knowledge, he realized, came with responsibility. The team's work became a careful balance between study and caution. Field trips to remote regions, analyses of energy anomalies, and decoding of ancient signals filled their days and nights. They knew they were uncovering pieces of a puzzle that spanned not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. And at the center of that puzzle was a silent, hidden presence, one that had already proven it could affect civilizations far beyond Earth. One night, as Dr. Hale reviewed the Carethan's fragmented transmissions, he realized the full weight of the warning. The Aurelians had not only marked Earth as forbidden, they had actively avoided it for millions of years. The lost Carethan's had only confirmed that avoidance was wise. Whatever walked among humans, it was still here. After the lost Carethan's expedition, Dr. Loren Hale and his team became more determined than ever to understand Earth's mysteries. The evidence pointed to a presence far older than humanity, something that had influenced the planet for millennia, yet remained unseen. The next step in their research led them to Antarctica, a place of ice and silence, where secrets of the Earth had been preserved for thousands of years. Antarctica had always been a land of extremes, a continent largely untouched by human activity. Yet beneath its thick ice there were signs that not everything was natural. Satellite imagery showed shapes and structures buried deep below, geometric and precise, unlike anything that could be formed by ice or rock. Dr. Hale's team arranged a secret expedition, bringing in a small group of scientists, engineers, and explorers. They prepared for extreme conditions, knowing that the environment itself could be deadly. As they approached the target site, instruments began to act strangely. Devices would flicker, readings would spike unexpectedly, and small electrical anomalies appeared even in shielded equipment. At first, the team blamed the harsh climate or equipment faults, but the patterns were consistent and oddly organized, almost as if something was intentionally interacting with them. When they drilled through the thick ice to reach the structures beneath, the team found materials that were not like anything on Earth. The composition of the structures was strange, dense, metallic yet with qualities of stone. It was strong, durable, and yet resistant to damage. More surprisingly, it emitted faint pulses of energy at irregular intervals. These pulses were subtle, but detectable. Dr. Hale compared the readings to the Aurelians' original signal and noticed an eerie similarity. The pulses seemed to follow a pattern, almost like a heartbeat, a rhythm that matched something alive, something aware. The team explored cautiously, mapping the area and documenting every finding. Large geometric shapes extended beneath the ice, forming patterns that could not have been accidental. Some resembled star maps, constellations, and grids, suggesting a knowledge of space far beyond human understanding. Dr. Hale began to wonder if these structures were remnants of an ancient civilization or perhaps the work of the same intelligence that had caused the Carethan's ship to vanish. Strange things began to happen during the expedition. Members reported seeing shadows moving along the ice, even when no one was there. Instruments would suddenly fail when pointed at certain areas. Some team members experienced hallucinations, fleeting images of shapes, faces, or figures that disappeared when focused on. One night, a storm trapped the team at the camp. A researcher, who had been monitoring the structures remotely, vanished without a trace. Footprints were found in the snow leading to the edge of the drilling site, but they stopped abruptly, as if the person had simply disappeared into thin air. The team documented everything, carefully noting patterns in the anomalies. They realized that the disturbances were not random. The structures beneath the ice, combined with the energy readings, suggested a hidden intelligence was present. Something was aware of their presence and was observing, perhaps testing them. Dr. Hale speculated that the intelligence was ancient, predating humanity by millions of years, and possibly linked to the warnings from the Aurelians. Communication with the outside world was limited. The extreme conditions and energy anomalies interfered with signals, making it difficult to report findings in real time. But fragments of data reached observatories around the world. Scientists analyzing the data were stunned by what they saw. Faint but organized patterns of energy, consistent across multiple sensors. It was as if the planet itself, or something beneath it, was alive, aware, and capable of interacting with intruders in subtle but undeniable ways. Dr. Hale's team continued to explore, finding more evidence of intelligence. Some structures had intricate carvings, symbols that could not be understood by any known language. Others seemed to serve as conduits for energy, channels that focused pulses in specific directions. The patterns were precise, deliberate, and far too advanced to be natural. Each discovery reinforced the idea that Earth had a hidden layer of history, a presence that had remained undetected for millennia. As the team analyzed the findings, they began to consider the implications. Humans had always assumed they were alone on Earth, the dominant species shaping their own destiny. But the evidence suggested otherwise. Earth had been influenced, monitored, and perhaps even guided by something older and more intelligent than humanity. The presence beneath Antarctica might be only one part of a much larger network, a hidden system spanning the globe. The psychological impact on the team was significant. Working in isolation, with constant reminders of the unknown, created tension and fear. Some members doubted their own senses, questioning whether they were imagining anomalies. Others became obsessed with documenting every detail, driven by curiosity and the desire to understand. Dr. Hale himself felt a mix of awe and dread. The structures beneath the ice were unlike anything humanity had encountered, yet the presence of intelligence was undeniable. One night, while monitoring energy readings, Dr. Hale noticed a sudden spike. The instruments recorded a pulse far stronger than usual, emanating from deep within the structures. The pattern resembled the original signal from the Aurelians, but amplified. It was as if the presence beneath Antarctica had responded to their intrusion. The pulse lasted for several minutes before fading, leaving the team in stunned silence. They realized that their actions had not gone unnoticed. Whatever was down there was aware, observing, and capable of interaction. The team debated whether to continue. The risks were growing. Instruments were failing more frequently. Hallucinations were becoming more common, and the disappearance of one member had left a lasting mark on morale. Yet curiosity and the drive to understand pushed them forward. They continued mapping the structures, taking careful notes and photographs and analyzing energy readings. Each discovery added to the growing understanding that Earth was not simply a natural planet, but a complex system, perhaps even a living entity in some sense, with hidden intelligence. Dr. Hale reflected on the implications for humanity. If a hidden presence existed beneath Antarctica, what else might be hidden elsewhere? Could these structures and energy systems be scattered across the globe, in deserts, mountains, or deep oceans? And if so, how had humans remained oblivious for so long? The presence had remained dormant or hidden, careful not to reveal itself, fully, yet capable of astonishing power when approached. The expedition also revealed that the anomalies were not entirely hostile. The energy pulses did not directly harm the team, although they interfered with instruments and induced hallucinations. It was as if the presence was testing them, observing their reactions, rather than actively attacking. This led Dr. Hale to speculate that the intelligence beneath Antarctica might have a purpose or intent that humans could not yet comprehend. Perhaps it was a guardian, a sentinel, or something beyond human morality and understanding. Despite the fear, the team pressed on. They recorded every anomaly, every pulse, and every shadow. They noted patterns in the energy readings, connections between different parts of the structures, and correlations with historical anomalies reported in other regions of the world. Slowly, a map began to emerge, hinting at a global network of hidden intelligence and energy systems that had shaped the planet long before humans existed. The expedition lasted several months, each day revealing new mysteries. The presence beneath Antarctica remained largely hidden, yet its influence was undeniable. Every interaction, from the faint energy pulses to the hallucinations and the disappearance, reinforced the conclusion. Earth was not simply a planet to be explored. It was a carefully observed and protected system, watched by forces older than humanity, and perhaps older than the stars themselves. As the team prepared to leave, Dr. Hale reflected on the mission. They had uncovered evidence of intelligence, far beyond human understanding. The structures, the energy patterns, and the subtle interactions suggested a presence that had existed for millions of years, and while the expedition had not fully revealed the nature of this presence, it had confirmed the warnings sent across the galaxy. Earth was marked. Humans were not alone. Something ancient, intelligent, and powerful walked among them, hidden, beneath the ice, waiting, observing, and influencing the world in ways humans could barely comprehend. The expedition returned with extensive data, carefully documented and analyzed. While much of it remained classified, the team continued to study the anomalies in secret. They realized that humanity had only glimpsed a fraction of the truth. The presence beneath Antarctica was a warning and a lesson. The universe was larger, older, and more mysterious than humans could imagine. And Earth, for all its beauty and life, was a place of hidden secrets, shaped by forces that had existed long before humans, and would likely continue to exist long after. Dr. Hale knew one thing for certain. Humanity's understanding of its planet was incomplete. The expedition had revealed only the surface of a much deeper mystery, one that stretched across time and space. Whatever walked among humans, whatever had caused the Carethans' disappearance, whatever had hidden beneath Antarctica for millennia, it was still here, and the planet itself along. After the expedition to Antarctica, Dr. Loren Hale and his team returned with more questions than answers. The structures beneath the ice and the strange energy patterns had confirmed one terrifying truth. Earth was not just a planet. It was a world watched, studied, and shaped by forces far older than humans. Yet, as profound as the Antarctic discoveries were, the team realized that the real mystery might be closer to home, inside humans themselves. It began with a study of the human genome. Some of the team members, trained in biology and genetics, suggested they examine patterns that might have been overlooked in previous research. The human genome had been mapped decades earlier, but they wondered if something subtle, something hidden, had gone unnoticed. Using advanced sequencing techniques, they began searching for anomalies, strains of DNA that didn't seem to fit with natural human evolution. What they found was astonishing. Deep within the genetic code of humans were sequences that did not match any known terrestrial pattern. These sequences were ancient, embedded in the human genome for at least 200,000 years, long before recorded history. They weren't mutations caused by random evolution or environmental pressures. They were deliberate, structured, and perfectly integrated, as if they had been designed with purpose. At first, the team struggled to comprehend the implications. Could this be the influence of the same intelligence that had hidden beneath Antarctica? Could the hidden presence have left a mark on humans themselves, shaping evolution from within? The more they studied, the clearer the pattern became. These sequences were present in humans globally, across all populations, yet their function remained largely dormant. They were a hidden blueprint, a signature of something beyond Earth's natural processes. The discoveries sparked intense debate among the team. Some members suggested the sequences were protective, meant to interact with the hidden intelligence in some way. Others feared they could indicate manipulation, that humans were being watched or controlled by forces far older than themselves. Dr. Hale, ever the cautious scientist, remained focused on observation. He insisted that the first priority was understanding, not speculation. Still, he could not ignore the possibility that the human species carried something unnatural, something that had been integrated into their biology long before humans had developed civilization. As the team dug deeper, they began to notice patterns in unusual human behavior. Certain individuals exhibited abilities that could not be explained by science, bursts of intuition, heightened perception, and even untraceable phenomena affecting electronics or magnetic fields around them. These occurrences were rare and inconsistent, but they suggested that the hidden sequences in the genome could sometimes activate under specific conditions. The implications were staggering. Humanity might not be entirely natural in the way people believed. There could be a dormant force within humans, a link to the intelligence beneath Antarctica and the hidden watchers of Earth. If the Aurelians had feared what walked among humans, it might not have been animals, plants, or even natural disasters. It could have been humans themselves, altered or influenced by something far older and stranger than anyone had imagined. The team expanded their study to historical records, looking for signs of extraordinary humans, people whose abilities had been noted but never understood. Legends, myths, and folklore suddenly gained a new dimension. Stories of individuals who could perform impossible feats, survive extraordinary conditions, or influence others in subtle but profound ways were no longer easily dismissed. Could these stories be linked to the dormant sequences discovered in the genome? Could the hidden intelligence have influenced human evolution to create observers or agents or even guardians that were not fully aware of their own nature? To test their theory, the team conducted controlled studies on volunteers. They monitored brain activity, electromagnetic fields, and genetic expression under various conditions. In some rare cases, the dormant sequences appeared to activate, producing measurable changes in physiology and perception. Individuals experienced heightened awareness, strange synchronization with natural forces, and subtle electromagnetic disturbances around them. While these events were inconsistent, they provided strong evidence that something within humans could interact with forces beyond ordinary comprehension. The discovery caused a mixture of excitement and fear within the team. On one hand, they were on the verge of understanding humanity's true potential, a link to ancient intelligence and hidden forces that had shaped Earth. On the other hand, they realized that humans had lived for millennia, unaware of the risks inherent in this genetic design. The activation of these sequences could be unpredictable, dangerous, and profoundly disruptive if not understood or controlled. Dr. Hale began to connect the dots. The Antarctic structures, the lost Carethans, the Aurelians' warnings, and the dormant genetic sequences in humans all pointed to a single conclusion. Earth had been a laboratory, a carefully monitored system where life was shaped and observed over eons. Humans were not simply the product of natural evolution. They were participants in a far larger experiment, one that had left marks both visible and invisible. As news of the discoveries spread quietly among trusted scientific circles, theories abounded. Some suggested that the intelligence influencing humans had arrived from elsewhere, perhaps a precursor species, or even the same entity that had warned the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Others proposed that the sequences were a safeguard, a dormant mechanism embedded within humans to interact with the hidden intelligence if certain conditions were met. Whatever the purpose, the existence of the sequences challenged humanity's understanding of itself, calling into question the nature of free will, evolution, and identity. The team's work also revealed that these dormant sequences were not uniform in their expression. Some individuals carried variations that were more likely to activate, while others remained entirely dormant. This explained why some people had seemingly extraordinary abilities, while most remained ordinary in appearance and function. It also suggested that Earth's hidden presence had been selective in its influence, choosing specific genetic lines or populations for particular purposes over millennia. Ethical considerations quickly became a concern. If the hidden sequences could be activated, should humans attempt to harness them? Could doing so provoke the ancient intelligence, potentially leading to dangerous consequences? Dr. Hale argued that understanding came first, and that any intervention without complete knowledge could be catastrophic. Still, curiosity and the desire for discovery weighed heavily on some team members, creating tension and debate about how far they should pursue the research. Meanwhile, the world outside remained largely unaware. Humanity continued with its daily routines, oblivious to the forces shaping their very DNA. Governments and international organizations were informed only to a limited extent, and most classified the findings as sensitive for national security reasons. But the team knew that the day might come when this knowledge could not be contained. Humanity was living alongside something far older and far more powerful than themselves, something that had subtly shaped their evolution and could still influence events in ways that humans could not predict. Dr. Hale began to see parallels between the genetic discoveries and the earlier expeditions. The anomalies detected in Antarctica, the lost Carethons, and even the energy patterns measured globally were all part of a system. Humans themselves were a component of that system, carrying dormant sequences that could interact with the hidden intelligence. It was as if the planet, its hidden structures, and the human species were all interconnected, forming a complex web of observation, influence, and control. The discoveries also led to difficult personal reflections among the team. Each researcher began to wonder about their own genome, their own potential. Could they be carrying dormant sequences that might activate? Were they being watched by the intelligence they had uncovered? Fear mingled with fascination, creating an atmosphere of tension, curiosity, and awe. Humans had always believed themselves to be the measure of life on Earth. Now they realized that they were participants in a story that spanned millions of years, influenced by forces far older than the human species. As the research progressed, the team attempted to predict possible interactions between humans and the hidden intelligence. They studied historical anomalies, rare abilities, and genetic variations to map potential patterns. The goal was not to provoke, but to understand, to anticipate events that could occur if dormant sequences activated spontaneously or in response to environmental triggers. Each discovery reinforced the magnitude of the challenge. Humanity was living alongside forces beyond comprehension, and even the most advanced science could only scratch the surface of understanding. In the quiet moments of reflection, Dr. Hale often considered the implications for humanity's future. If humans carried dormant sequences linked to an ancient intelligence, what would happen when these sequences became active on a large scale? Could humanity reach a point where awareness of the hidden intelligence transformed society, technology, and civilization itself? Or could activation provoke responses from the hidden presence, potentially causing chaos or disaster? The possibilities were as awe-inspiring as. After years of research, Dr. Loren Hale and his team had uncovered truths that challenged everything humanity believed about its place in the universe. The lost Carethons, the ancient warnings from the Aurelians, the Antarctic structures, and the dormant sequences hidden in human DNA all pointed to the same reality. Earth was not ordinary. It was alive in ways humans could barely understand, watched and influenced by a presence far older than the human species. Despite their findings, one question remained unanswered. What exactly was the intelligence that had marked Earth? The Aurelians had sent their warning, but they never explained the full nature of the threat. Dr. Hale suspected that understanding it fully might be impossible, but he also knew that waiting for it to act without knowledge would be far more dangerous. The presence had remained hidden for millennia, subtle and controlled, but humans had begun to probe deeper and the intelligence had noticed. One evening, while reviewing energy readings from the Antarctic site, Dr. Hale noticed something unusual. The faint pulses recorded for years had suddenly intensified, forming a pattern that resembled a signal. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and eerily familiar, the same pattern that had been noted in the Aurelian's original warning. The team realized that the intelligence beneath the ice was responding. It had been silent for millennia, but there, research had triggered a reaction. The pulse began to spread, reaching across different regions where energy anomalies had been recorded in the past. Instruments around the world picked up faint disturbances in electromagnetic fields, gravitational readings, and even atmospheric behavior. Animals acted strangely, migrating in unusual patterns, and natural phenomena began occurring with a precision that defied scientific explanation. Something was awakening. Dr. Hale's team worked tirelessly, analyzing the signals, mapping their source, and attempting to understand the logic behind them. Every day brought new evidence that the presence was aware of human curiosity and intervention. It was not overtly hostile, but the energy signatures suggested immense power. The intelligence could manipulate forces at planetary scales, control environmental conditions, and affect humans directly. At the same time, human society began to show subtle effects. Individuals with the dormant genetic sequences discovered in Part 5 began experiencing changes more frequently. Some reported vivid dreams, visions, and a sense of connection with something larger than themselves. Others developed abilities that were rare but undeniable: heightened perception, unexplained intuition, and even the ability to influence electronic devices in their vicinity. Scientists like Dr. Hale suspected that the awakening presence was interacting with these sequences, probing human responses to gauge readiness or threat levels. The team debated the ethical and practical implications. Should they attempt to communicate, or continue observing quietly? Any misstep could provoke a reaction from an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. The balance between curiosity and caution became critical. Dr. Hale insisted that observation remained the priority, but the team knew that humanity was approaching a point of no return. Then came the most startling discovery. Satellite imagery revealed structures appearing in remote locations across the globe, not just in Antarctica. Some were beneath oceans, others under deserts or mountains. They emitted energy pulses identical to those beneath the Antarctic ice, suggesting a global network, interconnected and controlled by the hidden presence. It was as if the planet itself had become a vast, intelligent system, with humans and life forms integrated into its operation, sometimes unaware, sometimes directly influenced. One night, Dr. Hale was monitoring energy readings when a new transmission arrived. It was not from the Aurelians, but from a source unlike any they had encountered. The signal was structured, deliberate, and unmistakably intelligent. It did not contain words, but conveyed meaning directly to the mind, bypassing conventional communication. Thoughts, images, and emotions flooded Dr. Hale's consciousness. He saw visions of the planet from millions of years ago, ancient civilizations rising and falling, and humans evolving under subtle guidance. The message was clear. Earth had always been watched. Humanity was not entirely natural. It had been shaped, guided, and observed by a force older than the stars themselves. The transmission carried a warning and a choice. Humans could continue to exist within this system, observing, learning, and respecting its rules, or risk triggering reactions that could be catastrophic. The Aurelians' original warning now made perfect sense. They had not feared humans. They had feared the consequences of awakening the presence. As the weeks passed, the intelligence's interaction became more direct. Humans with the dormant sequences began to experience synchronicity with the environment, sudden bursts of intuition, inexplicable understanding of complex systems, and an ability to anticipate natural events. Some cities reported technological anomalies, such as unexplained power surges, malfunctioning devices, and subtle gravitational distortions. The intelligence was testing boundaries, observing how humans responded under stress, curiosity, and challenge. Dr. Hale realized that the human species itself was part of the planet's system, a living network interacting with the hidden intelligence. The presence was not malevolent in the human sense. It acted according to rules and principles beyond morality. It had preserved, guided, and shaped life on Earth, integrating humans as one component of a larger planetary intelligence. Humanity's awakening to this truth marked a turning point, both dangerous and profound. The team worked tirelessly to understand the relationship between humans and the intelligence. They mapped genetic sequences, energy readings, and behavioral anomalies, seeking patterns. One breakthrough came when they discovered that certain individuals could synchronize with the energy network intentionally. By focusing mental and physical effort, they could influence environmental energy patterns subtly, demonstrating that humans were not merely passive observers. They could interact, if carefully and respectfully, with the hidden presence. This discovery brought hope, but also fear. The intelligence had enormous power, capable of manipulating entire regions, affecting climate and altering life. Humanity's actions had to be precise, respectful, and cautious. Even small miscalculations could trigger massive responses. Dr. Hale emphasized the importance of teaching humans to understand their role without provoking the presence. The balance between curiosity and reverence became the central principle for future interaction. The final test came when a global energy, pulse stronger than anything previously recorded, radiated from the Antarctic network. The presence had activated fully, revealing its awareness of humanity's investigations. Humans around the world experienced unusual phenomena. Lights in the sky, subtle gravitational shifts, sudden clarity of thought, and visions connecting them to Earth's past. Many individuals with dormant sequences felt an intense connection, as if the planet itself were communicating directly. Dr. Hale and his team monitored the event with a mix of awe and caution. The energy pulse lasted hours, gradually fading as the intelligence retracted its active signals. The event confirmed everything the team had suspected. Earth was alive in a way humans could comprehend only partially, and the intelligence had been influencing humanity for millennia. It had tested, guided, and observed, ensuring survival, development, and balance. In the aftermath, humanity began to perceive subtle changes. Awareness of Earth's hidden intelligence grew, though still largely subconscious for most people. Some researchers reported visions of the planet's history, understanding the hidden structures beneath oceans, deserts, and polar ice. The dormant sequences in humans appeared to integrate with their consciousness, enhancing awareness and connection to the planet. Society remained largely unchanged on the surface, but a quiet shift had begun in human perception, philosophy, and scientific inquiry. Dr. Hale understood that humanity had crossed a threshold. Humans were now aware of Earth's hidden nature, the intelligence beneath its surface, and the dormant potential within their own species. The Aurelian's warning had been validated. Humanity had been tested, observed, and partially awakened. The final lesson was clear. Curiosity was a gift, but respect, caution, and understanding were essential. Humans could continue to evolve and explore, but only within the boundaries defined by the intelligence that had quietly shaped their world for millions of years. In the quiet nights following the energy pulse, Dr. Hale reflected on the journey. Humanity had learned of its small but significant place in a vast system. The lost Carethans had demonstrated the dangers of ignoring warnings. The Antarctic structures, the dormant sequences, and the global energy network had revealed the true scope of Earth's intelligence. And finally, the presence itself had communicated, guiding humanity to recognize its responsibilities, potential, and limitations. The story of Earth, once thought ordinary, had transformed into a narrative of hidden intelligence, ancient guardianship, and profound interconnection. Humans were no longer the sole architects of their fate. They were participants in a system millions of years in the making. And the Aurelian's warning, once cryptic, was now understood. Earth was extraordinary, and those who walked upon it carried a connection to something far older and far wiser than themselves.